I got some experience clapping. Not to brag, but
Good.
Aaron, introduce our guest today. What do we got for today?
Yeah, this is Ken Landry. We work together daily at the school. We've talked shop many a times. I asked him on the show today, and the first thing he said was there is a flood of maybe a little bit of anxiety knowing that this is a photography podcast,
Right.
By title, but we get into a lot more clearly. But he goes, I don't know, man. I don't know jargon. I don't know photo talk. I don't know the technicals of it. And I was like, no.
You're like, that's perfect.
Yeah, we're not going there. We're not going there. Ken is an avid overlander. He loves back roads. He loves souping up his truck, doing lots of modifications, documenting his journey, depending on where he's going and what he's doing. He's been on a lot of travels over the last couple of years. This is a relatively new passion, I would say, within the last 4 years. Kind of where it really started getting going.
Months, 4 years.
Yeah, he does a ton with his YouTube channel, and I think the interesting part of this conversation will be the need for documenting what he's doing with his brand deals, with his reviews that he's doing. How do you translate a story? How do you translate a narrative? How do you show what you're trying to show without knowing a ton of photography, a ton of video? You have to be able to have that aspect to your toolkit if you're going to promote any sort of passion. So you kind of think about anyone that's on YouTube, there's this whole aspect of the video, like that's being done, the editing that's being done. For the most part, he's pretty self-taught. And I think it's just an interesting story in practice and perfecting, or trying to get to a point where like it comes easy and you're doing cool things. You're incorporating drone work, you're incorporating a bunch of different things. And it's just part of the game, even though the passion necessarily isn't photography and video.
Right.
I think that's a big part of the pizza pie of the business, if you will, of his
pizza pie.
Yeah, of his passion. It is a big part of it. Might be, I mean, if you argued time-wise from like a camping trip, you might argue the video and the photo part surmounts it by threefold, fourfold from the actual camping or overlanding.
Right.
So,
well, I like this today. So this is something we haven't really done. Usually we have photographers, creators on where that's their primary creating stuff in like the commercial sense, or just people are photographers that come on the show. So I like that we have you as a photographer, videographer as a secondary, as a consequence of doing what you want to do, which is really interesting. I'm excited for that. And I like that you don't have that confidence in, I know my camera inside and out. I know all about this industry, because there's a lot of people listening who perhaps have tons of other interests. And maybe we're looking at this backwards, where we forget that the camera is a vessel to tell that story and to express our passion, as opposed to, I am a photographer and I need to go document stuff. It's no, I like this stuff and I need the camera as a tool to do this job well. So I'm really excited for this today. Welcome to the show, Ken. What the hell is overlanding for people who don't know? Give us a good explanation and why you love it so much.
I was waiting for you to ask. There are only wrong answers to that question.
Okay.
Yeah. If you were to Google it, you'd get plenty of conflicting, ideas or conflicting answers. But my interpretation of overlanding is it's vehicle-based adventure travel, where you incorporate a level of self-sustaining or like self-preservation as far as living out of your vehicle. So you're using your vehicle for some length of time, and that part is meant to be vague. Some length of time, you're traveling, some distance, also vague, but you're finding a way to live out of that vehicle in wild spaces. And there's going to be a lot of, there's a lot of different answers you could get from Google. There's a lot of different answers you could get from people. And there's a lot of very strong opinions as to what that is. Some people say that overlanding has to be, moving from continent to continent with the same vehicle, or you like ship it on a freight. And then there's others who say, if you've got a tent and you packed it up into your SUV and you went down the street to a local campground, that could be considered overlanding too. So I don't really, I'm of the mindset of let's just be inclusive. If you want to call it overlanding, call it overlanding. But at the end of the day, it's travel, adventure-based travel out of your vehicle, and you are self-sustained, so you can go some period of time sleeping in it, maybe even showering out of it if you have, the right gadgets, but that's what it is.
Where'd the name come from? Varsity Overland.
There's a cool answer and there's a lame answer. So I'll start with the lame answer.
Lame first, so we can end on the cool.
Lame answer for Varsity Overland is I'm a teacher and I've been an athlete my whole life, and the word varsity just came to mind.
Yeah.
So
that's not that lame.
Yeah, I mean,
so the cool one better be really cool.
Ooh.
Cool one. I don't know. The cool one is like if you pick any sport, any level of competition anywhere, varsity is always like that caliber that you aspire to. Middle school, high school, college, beyond college. If you're competitive in anything, varsity is always that level where like people, I want to make varsity. You want to be known as top tier. So I was like, I'm not calling myself top tier. I am in pursuit of that though.
Nice.
I want to be regarded as, one of the best in the business at some point. You know what I mean? So that's a cool answer.
Very cool. That is cool.
All right. Part 2. Why do you love it so much? And then we'll get into more nuanced questions as the episode progresses.
Yeah, sure. So why do I love overlanding? It is very opposite of my kind of my personality, especially my personality from like 5 years ago. Social media would totally label me as an introvert. I was not the type of person to, step outside my comfort zone, my wheelhouse. And I had a friend who ended up getting a rooftop tent, which is like a vehicle mounted tent on top of his vehicle a couple of years ago. He showed up to a camping trip that we went on. And I was just like, hey, that thing was cool. Told me about it, YouTubed it, found that, people do this. They put a tent on their vehicle and they start touring the country. And, so my wife and I spent about 5 weeks traveling the country in the summer of 2021. And it was the best decision ever because I discovered that what I've been missing essentially, because I was never into traveling. I was never really into like wild spaces. I mean, I go hiking every once in a while, but I kind of caught the bug of like, wow, this is the world,
Mm-hmm.
And I just couldn't stop thinking about it after that. I'd have conversations with Aaron. Going back to that school year, I'd have conversations with Aaron and I'd be like, man, at this very moment, there are bison walking across Yellowstone National Park.
Yeah.
How can I stand where I'm standing right now knowing that something like that is out there? And it just drove me crazy. So I like it because there's a lot to explore. The world's a big place. And up until a certain point in my life, my world was very small. And then at one point I was able to open my eyes and realize what I was missing. And now I don't want to miss out on it anymore.
Mm-hmm. It's funny how you don't know what you're missing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. My question would then go to, okay, so you've found this new thing that you seemingly fall in love with pretty quickly.
Yeah.
What's the gap between I love this thing to I love this thing and it's time to document it visually?
I like stories. So growing up, I always enjoyed the hero's journey kind of storytelling ideas. And so when I found that other people, YouTubers, let's say, other people took this idea of overlanding and used it as their avenue to tell a story, I felt like I might be able to do something like that. So it was really inspiration from seeing other people do it. Had I not looked onto YouTube, I don't know if I would have come up with the idea myself. But it was, it's a creative outlet. When I was a kid, I used to play around with Windows Movie Maker on my home desktop,
Nice.
like middle school and high school in the early days. So I used to, hook up the family camcorder to that and just like shoot some stupid stuff from my backyard. And then I'd spend a couple hours on a Sunday afternoon and splice them together. And, I'd be all excited about what I produced. But maybe aside from my parents, nobody else really cared. You know what I mean? It's not like you could just start showing that off when you go to school the next day. So doing this and putting it out on YouTube allows me to share that with a broader audience.
Right. Aaron, do you want to go or can I keep
Yeah. I'll just put in some color commentary because I know him, I think it's cool. I mean, I know Ken as the health and PE teacher at school. That's one Ken I know. And then you watch like I told him like I ran into the Vermont trip that he documented, and I was like, dude, that was cool. Like that was far.
So happy
out.
you watched that one because I put so much effort into that video.
well, but that's the one that like hit me. Like I've seen other ones, but I was like, dude, you're improving. Like it really shows. And just to see like the different kind of personality and see someone in their element, it's interesting to have that juxtaposition of someone in their day-to-day job. And Ken and I talk about it all the time. We have a very good job, a very like stable, pretty darn good job.
Yeah.
It's not killing us. It's pretty darn good. But to see someone in their element in a different light is very cool. So I think it is neat to see someone find what they're doing and find something that they love that they're doing and take it to whatever level you can. Like you said, the aspiration of making varsity. It's no guarantee you're going to make varsity and when you're trying out for the basketball team, but that's the goal. You're trying, you're working at it, and you try to figure out how to keep working at it. So it's been fun. We've had parallel journeys, I feel like, in terms of the time frame of stuff. And like it's been fun to, banter and talk about where we're at and this deal or that deal or this idea or that idea. It's been cool to grow kind of on parallel lines. So it's been nice to see.
Now Aaron, I'm gonna ask you a question. Maybe you've kind of already said it, but maybe it'll help you elaborate more. Before I ask you that, it's we obviously have creators of all sizes, and when I say sizes, I'm referring to the quantifiable metric of followers. We had Mark Smith on, who's 2.3 million. We have smaller creators on. We don't really care as long as it's going to make for a great episode. And I think we use the analogy sometimes of often it's more relatable and helpful and valuable for listeners to get advice from people who are halfway up the mountain as opposed to standing on the peak, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And I think this episode is going to fit that mold. But more so, just for you to elaborate even further, and hopefully you don't embarrass Ken too much, but why did you, aside from being able to, obviously you know him and you can vouch for his character and he has a lot of creative work, why did you want Ken on the show today?
Yeah, well, I think what you just said is definitely part of it. Ken is famous for one-line zingers, like at our faculty meetings, or just this. I mean, Ken, I don't want to embarrass him, but we have to present in front of. Well, we have to present in front of parents every open house in the beginning of the year, and Ken is
that's open mic. That's open mic night.
Yeah, he's but he comes across as like you said, a quiet, introverted, like I'm not going to throw myself out there. I don't need to be the center of attention. In fact, probably the opposite. And then he would be in front of a stand full of parents, and that could be a little bit intimidating. And he would just come out with like these, I don't know, these funny, like really dry, sarcastic, sort of deadpan, humorous one-liners. So he's also a teacher. He talks in front of people all the time. I think when I think about bringing a guest onto the show, I hope that we can have a conversation. So I was confident in that sense of who he is. What I really found interesting in terms of my mind, he mentioned, I like telling a story or giving a story. The narrative that kept replaying in my head for a while, with the idea of Ken coming on, it happened to work out perfectly today. But the idea of the fact that he doesn't know the ins and outs of a camera or video or Photoshop, Lightroom,
Mm-hmm.
Premiere Pro, it has not stopped him from creating. And I think that's very interesting and really important to be like, I'm going to push through it and kind of fake it till I make it and learn tips as I go and adjust and try to get better. But I'm not going to say, like that's too difficult. I don't get it, or I don't get my camera menu, or I don't get this, or hell, I'm going to use my phone as a video recorder because I'm still can tell a story.
Right.
Nothing has held him back to try to pursue that passion. I think from square one to where he is now, and he probably would admit, like, I still got long way to go. Like I'm trying to pursue overlanding and that passion, but at the same time, I have to like pursue photography and videography and editing and sound design and like all these other things. So he's really tackling two passions at the same time, where most our guests are tackling the one. They're or like video and photography. So it was interesting that juggle, like photography and videography for him is secondary, but it's so important to his overall passion and story and quest, if you will, hero quest, if you will. So that was kind of my
Sweet.
This is interesting. This is different.
Yeah, well, let's jump off there with photography and videography being secondary. I guess one of my first questions is, if photography and videography is secondary to telling the story of overlanding, can you get to a point where you don't need to have the most insane quality? Have you thought about this, where this is kind of what I need to know to be able to do the thing that's most important the best I can?
You mean the quality as far as the equipment?
I guess, let me phrase it this way. You could get so deep into the nuances of photography and videography in the name of improving.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a trade-off with that is perhaps, as I become more advanced in videography and photography, it requires more time and effort, cognition, which may reduce my ability to simply put a YouTube video together or do the overlanding.
Yeah.
So my question is, if I wasn't clear enough, I apologize, is, have you thought about the fact that there may be a cap to your learning in the photography and videography sense of what's necessary for you to do what you do well? Or is...
Yeah, I get that. I mean, the cap, I don't know if I imagine I'll stumble across a cap at some point.
Right.
I know that, as like the gear, the camera, the drones, as the technology gets more complex, or as I'm required to learn more, there is an element of that. You said, does it take away from the actual experience, the overlanding? And I'd say for sure it does. And I've mentioned that in a few of my videos, just about, how easy it is to get lost in getting the shot, for example, or setting up the drone to simply just drive by or whatever, and like kind of forgetting that, like, hey, there's a mountaintop over there. Hey, it's a sunset right now. Hey, you're in the middle of the wilderness in, Maine, for example, and like enjoying just being out there. And so I think there might be a cap at some point. I certainly haven't reached it yet. But I think that is why I tend to not delve so hard into the camera aspect. Like I have a camera. I have a Sony A7 III. It's a little dated, but it's new to me. And it is taking me a long time to like experiment and learn that camera, simply because of I know the phone's going to be easy, and I know that using the phone is also going to help me enjoy the experience while I'm there. So right now, the phone's doing the job. So I don't know if I haven't hit a cap yet, but I imagine it certainly exists. I know that people go, I mean, there's productions, there's companies that go out and they do this, and that's their living. You know, they get a whole crew of 7 to 8 people out, and they go and they do like a Overland documentary, and they've got, you know, cinematic, you know, top of the line camera gear and drones and everything, you know, $10,000 drones. And, you know, they that's their job. And you often wonder, how much are you enjoying, let's say, your trip to Iceland, when you have that responsibility of the gear and getting it right. I don't. It's where does that line exist between your passion and your job? I guess you could say. At some point, it is work. At some point, right now, it's not to me. I'm still enjoying it. So
I think people can conflate the idea of the production value of what you just described. They can mistake that for being automatically better. Whereas, let's say a vlog shot on an iPhone isn't necessarily worse overall, maybe in terms of production value, but the overall product is just simply different. I think we can get caught up in, this looks amazing, it was shot on a, you know, Ember Freefly, and so it has to be better. I mean, that's where I need to get to. But then you have the ton of successful creators who are just making front-facing iPhone vlog style videos, and that's not any worse or better. It's just simply different.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I think the difference really comes down to what I'm noticing currently is working with brands.
Okay.
You know, some brands, they kind of, you know, they might kind of be like, it's a bone. Maybe we don't want to pursue this guy because we could tell that the camera's shaky here or there. We can tell that the photo might be grainy or whatever in this regard. You know, let's work with the guy that's using the cinematic, I don't know, cinematic camera or something like that. So as far as storytelling, if you're a good storyteller, you can do it right. I mean, yeah, you could totally just do it on a phone. But as far as working with brands, you know, some people are forced to evolve with their gear simply because that's what the brands are looking for.
I guess it depends what the product is. Like, let's say your personality is 1 in a billion. A brand may not care that it's on an iPhone, right?
Okay.
I think it's just like, it's just something to think about how, like, what is the product? And does the production value contribute to that negatively or positively, or does it have a factor at all? I think is something to consider as well.
I think some of those shows I'm thinking of, like Bear Grylls, Man vs. Wild, Alone or Survive. I forget that other one where it's like he has the one GoPro, you know, and that's the entire.
And you could watch it for hours.
Yeah, because there's great narrative, great story, great interviews, vlog style sort of feature where it's not super fancy. It's shaky. It's this. It's that. But it. I mean, it did obviously very well, and people followed it, and people watched it, and people liked it.
Right. And then you have like Planet Earth or Blue Planet, where it's taking 4 years to be filmed, and it's on these crazy gyro mounted Canon 51,000 millimeter lenses. And I hear you. I think what's also interesting, Ken, you can weigh in on this, is the balance between my skill set right now is good enough and pushing your learning to learning new skills. I mean, because you could just say, "Oh, this is good enough. I'm putting out videos every week. Great on my iPhone, and this is awesome." But there's the urge to learn a new skill and push it. So there's this odd balance between, I don't want to say apathy, but kind of being comfortable where you're at.
Yeah.
And
you can get, it's, you know, complacency, I guess you could.
Sure. And, or how much further do I push this?
Right.
Or how many brand deals do I lose before I go, okay, I have to figure something out.
Has this happened? You're laughing.
No, it hasn't happened. I think I tend to, instead of pushing let's say the camera quality for example, I'll push the editing. You know,
Okay.
I always am learning, and and I feel like that's lends more to like the creative piece of my brain,
Mm.
you know, because I could take anything that I filmed from my phone and put it on, you know, Premiere Pro, and if I learn enough and I go through enough features, I could do anything with that footage, you know. So I guess it kind of speaks to what you were saying, Seth, is like doesn't have to be the most expensive gear. You could do it if you got the personality that helps, but it also if you could piece your footage together from a phone because you're willing to grow your skills in another aspect. Maybe you're not growing your skills with, you know, learning the ins and outs of a fancy camera. Maybe instead you're growing your skills with your editing software or your knowledge of that editing software.
Mhm.
That can give you leaps and bounds too.
Yeah. I guess this also speaks to, do you become an expert and really good and dialed in one area, or do you try and be well-rounded? That's something I struggle with sometimes.
For sure. I don't know if anyone would have a
Yeah.
Well, Aaron
100%.
has the scorecard, the self-reflective scorecard. He used to mention, how am I at editing? How am I at storytelling? How am I at color grading, etc. Would you
Yeah.
rather, I'll present this to you guys. Would you rather be C's across the board? Okay. In hypothetical categories for being a video editor, photographer, storyteller, YouTuber, etc. Would you rather be, well, let's go with B's across the board in all those? Or would you rather have a couple A's and you're like a D in the D's in the other things?
For me, I like at least being level. Where that concept came up for me was really golf and learning golf. There's you have your driving off the tee, you have your iron play, you have your short game, you have your putting, and it just seemed like if your driving was really good for 1 week, your putting was awful. If your putting was really good, your iron game was awful. Like it's very hard for the whole game to match up. And in my mind, it was like, where do I need to work to keep everything pretty much at the B level, so
Mhm.
that because one F or D in that sport ruins the rest. So keeping that analogy with photography, I just felt like, and let's call it photography editing, like taking the picture, editing, videography, editing, storytelling, whatever it may be, like whatever categories you want. I didn't want any glaring weaknesses. I wanted to get to the A level with direct focus on any given opportunity. So someone says, "Hey, we need this video." I go, "Okay, well, I'm a C plus right now, but I can get up to an A minus if I focus on it."
Well
Right?
said.
If I'm at a D or an F in something, I might miss some of those deals or I might miss some of those opportunities because now I'm not confident in myself. And I just feel like if I can keep myself at a good enough level, I can bump up to A's wherever I need to be.
Good answer.
Thanks.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I feel like I don't know. I don't really know if I'd say what I'd say. Do I take B's across the board or not? B's are good. I don't mind B's.
Yeah,
I was a
they're
solid
not
B.
bad.
When
There's
I
your
was growing
soundbite.
up,
Aaron's like 3 minutes
I was
long. He goes, I'll take B's.
These are good.
I
Well,
grew up
let me
with solid
ask
B's. I'm
you.
a solid B kid. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it depends. There's a lot. I mean, yeah, you can get into the complications of it, but there's a lot of there's a lot of variables that you can deal with too. You know, like think about you could do this with photography, you know, if we're talking about wildlife or natural spaces, for example, but then that natural spaces could apply to overlanding too. If you're in a location geographically, you know, your home base isn't exactly the most beautiful place on earth, but that is all you have to work with. Maybe you'd want yourself to be an A plus in that storytelling regard, you know, or
That's a good
you might
point.
look at it from an editing standpoint. You know, you'd want to be an A plus with your editing, so that even if you took a picture of a crow, you know, on the sidewalk,
Mhm.
that'd be a bomb photo. You know what I mean? So there's a couple pieces in the background that could even affect that choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think for you, what your passion is again is overlanding and surviving out of your car. And there's something to be said for like, I want as little gear as I possibly can take. I don't want to be charging tons of batteries. I don't want to be losing lens caps, lenses.
That's so opposite of how people actually feel about overlanding though.
So they want to take as much gear as
Yeah,
possible.
kitchen sink, 2 kitchen sinks if you can.
Damn it.
It's
For videography purposes or just for the overlanding purposes?
just for the overlanding piece, you know. But I think because of some really large scale videography overlanders, some of the really big brands or big companies, they're going above and beyond. They're raising the bar so much higher than anyone ever anticipated that it makes the weekend warriors like myself sometimes feel like I need to aspire to that. I need to have a dual battery system in my vehicle that is able to charge all 3 of my extra cameras, my 2 drones, all this other stuff in order to make my YouTube video.
As good as that. So yeah, it's like somebody's always trying to sell you something, whether it's on purpose or by accident.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's so just like this just popped in my head, but going back to something that Aaron said a little while back about like, you know, just using the phone because that's what you got and just going out and doing it and telling the story as best you can because that's what you have available. Overlanding has that aspect too. You know, a lot of people think that they need to, I'm going to wait to take that trip. You know, I'm going to wait to go to Alaska. I'm going to wait to do this or this because I'm not done building my vehicle, or I don't have the right tent yet, or I don't have, you know what I mean? So like, It's kind of that same idea. It's, you know, why wait? Don't wait. All you're doing is killing time and, you know, and who knows what could happen tomorrow. So, you know, just if you've got a Honda Civic, you could still drive to a national park, pay the fee and spend the night, you know, in a canyon if you wanted to.
Yeah, and if you were creating content around that, I feel like people would respect the authenticity too. This is who I am. This is what I got. This is me.
For sure.
And yeah, what you said is so interesting. You can wait your life away, right? I don't have a mirrorless camera yet. I have no business pitching brands. I don't have the right wheels for my Tacoma.
Yeah,
it's not time to do a photo shoot, and then you stagnate forever, right? Because you can come up with 1,000,001 excuses wherever you're at. I feel like in your career or in your pursuit of your passion, and you can always find some reason to not do something. And this goes back to, you know, stoicism, the obstacle's the way. Using that thing that you see as an ailment,
sure,
as part of the story potentially, or as a way to power through and build confidence, or to slow down that part of your brain that comes up with reasons why you shouldn't begin or commence something. Totally right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. I mean, like, you know, photography. If there's someone listening right now that wants to get into photography, but they don't have the best camera that they're hoping to have, you know, or videography or whatever, or someone aspiring to be a content creator, they're waiting. They're like, oh, I'm gonna start when, you know, like, why not just start now with whatever you got?
Yeah, or I'm going to get everything perfect.
Yeah.
We try to I'm going to get everything right on the first attempt. I'm not going to make any mistakes. I'm going to get it perfect exactly how that person in that YouTube video showed me. Even though I have zero experience, I have no reps, no repetition. I'm going to plan it so long and for so hard that you can convince yourself that you're being productive. And it's just busy work, right? There's no better substitute for repetitions, being a rookie, being bad at things, and just continuing to progress from the bottom up. I truly believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Ken's way, I got to say, is perfecting the storytelling, the craft, the shots, all that stuff stays the same no matter what camera I put in his hands in terms of angles, what have you. Like, he can work on 98% of making a video dependent on whatever special camera he has or whatever $3,000 lens he has or whatever cine camera he has. So that's an easy place to trade in, right? Like he has all the skills. Now it's let me spend the money on this camera and I can use it to its fullest ability. There's a group of people like audiophiles, right? And they set up their vinyl records and the perfect spacing of their speakers. Some people, this is not a joke, rewire their entire house to get clean electricity with like gold wiring, thinking that's going to adjust the experience, and it adjusts the hearing, the sound of the vinyl record. There's so many variables to a vinyl record setup. You have the diamond needle, the cartridge, the arm, the mat, the preamp, the amp, the speakers, the wires, the electric, like so many different things. The room that you're in, you look up these rooms. They're hilarious because it's like, good Lord, like you have gone overboard to try to get chasing this dragon of like perfect sound. But the experience, I feel like gets lost, which is putting on a record, maybe having a drink or a tea, having a fire and listening to some music and relaxing. Right. So we can get stuck in like this. Everything has to be perfect. There's no point in doing it. I got that way with guitars a little bit, where it's like, instead of practicing guitar, I wanted to buy the next guitar to have like a little bit of a different sound,
or string it absolutely perfect.
Yeah. And it would excite me for a month and then I would put it down again because it's not the essence of the thing. The essence of the thing is playing and practicing and the sweat and the grinding. The gear, to a point, is sure important, but not the lion's share of the experience.
Yeah. You know what I will say on this? I agree with you to an extent, but I'll push back on this. I feel like if, let's use your audiophile example, redoing the wiring in your house and the diamond needle, if that accents the experience, and you're still finding the time to enjoy the music somehow, like maybe that prep work or all those supplementary activities are part of the fun process for you. Like maybe it's not a drag, or maybe like spending 2 hours in the kitchen cooking or chopping onions and making marinara sauce and doing, maybe that makes the meal much better. I think I would agree with you in the sense that if all you're doing is rewiring your house and you're never listening to the records, that's when it's gotten away from you.
Or if you're just chasing, I need this it could sound better.
Better. Yeah. Like
I think the accenting, to what you just said, Seth, the accenting of it, like rewiring, and if it does, accent the experience and make it that much better. I agree, but you only know that it made it that much better because maybe you were able to experience it without it.
Fair.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there is that level too, in just getting out and taking photos, not knowing what you're doing, videography without really knowing what you're doing, editing and just figuring out as you go. Like that newbie experience is purposeful because you almost, at that point, you get your direction, what needs to be improved. I think if people wait and they just collect their gear, I'm not going to use a drone unless I can afford the $5,000 one or $10,000 one or whatever, then maybe they ended up spending the money needlessly and getting something else would have been just fine, but they never knew that. They don't have anything to compare it to. They only have the best in that way. You know what I mean?
I treat this idea of theorizing things to death as learning a language. So, for example, I could do Duolingo every single day for 12 months. Spanish, let's say. And then you could plot me in Spain. Or we could have Ken speak to a Spanish person for a month.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who do you think's going to have a better grasp of the language?
There you go.
It's the same. That's just how I always think about it.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of, I have a question about photography and videography. Since it's secondary to you, it's a means for you to document the primary thing, which is overlanding, which we've mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
How do you view photography and videography? Is it like, this is a necessity for me to be able to do what I want to do? Or is there an effort to try to not fall in love with it, but is there an effort to try to like it?
There's an effort to try. A part of me, when you started speaking, a part of me thought, if I could hire someone to follow me around,
right,
and do it for me while I'm on the experience, I think that'd be preferred, to be honest.
So getting to a place where you can delegate.
Yeah. And only to an extent, though. Yeah, it would certainly be a delegation. It wouldn't necessarily be, the new guy behind the camera is in charge of all the shots, and I don't have any say. I would certainly still be,
a director,
for sure. So because I do enjoy that aspect of it. Pulling the truck over on a trail and spending 5 minutes to kind of look around and be like, let's try this one, or let's try this shot, or let's try this, and so I do enjoy that aspect of it. But as far as the two aspects that I love the most are probably just the simple exploration piece when I'm out there, and then the editing. I really enjoy editing.
Yeah. So this is an exact testament to getting to getting to a place where you're successful enough that you can delegate to then put your primary amount of time into the thing that you've wanted to do from the start.
Right.
This is why startups hire accountants, they hire lawyers, they hire marketing teams so that they can get down to, Aaron and I are in this right now. There's a lot of things about this show we don't want to do, but we're like, how can we delegate this? How can we get to a place where we can, and ultimately that serves the viewer better. That serves your audience better, because now you're able to focus more on and I'm not downplaying those roles. It's just acknowledging that there's people who love those roles and who are better than them at you, perhaps, and can make your whole project that much better. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about this conversation. It's interesting. I'm trying to imagine myself if, to be able to be a photographer or videographer, I had to overland.
Right.
It's sort of similar in that sense, where it's like, I have to do the overlanding if I'm going. It doesn't make sense, obviously, in the physical world, but that's how I'm treating it in my head. Like if I wanted to do the thing and I had to do the other thing, we're reversing the photography and videography, which is kind of interesting.
Actually, Aaron did.
Did he? Well, he has a not a RAV4. He has a 4Runner.
And I've stayed overnight a couple times, but I did my camping.
Yeah, the van.
Yeah, the van
out
for
west.
The week out west in California, and
doing the photography, videography, but you were doing it.
I had to survive
through that.
Oh, the Moterra van in Utah.
Yeah, had to pee in a giant gallon bucket for a whole.
Wait,
week.
Did you seriously?
Yeah, I had to.
Good for you.
Thank you.
I'm proud.
Why didn't you just pee in the wilderness?
Or that, but sometimes that wasn't available, or it was cold. Or it was like,
what do you mean wasn't available? It's outside.
No, I know, but it's April in the desert. It was freezing, so that was easier. It came with a toilet, but my goal for the week was to not use the toilet one time, because then you have to clean it before you turn it back in. And it was like those
came back 20 pounds heavier. Is that what you're?
no, that was. We're not going to get into that, but that was timed. But yeah, it was.
Right.
He was out there. I ended up messaging him at one point. I said, I hate to break it to you, Aaron, but you're overlanding right now.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
it was.
Get to join the club.
But I'll tell you what. Photographers often talk about. I mean, I feel like Ken right now is kind of learning a lot from the photographer mind, us, and mindset, and vice versa. But photographers can learn a lot from like his videos and his spots. We all talk about like, that place is too overrun, or that place is too crowded. It's so busy. Overlanding is about getting away from that a bit and finding these areas in the world that you can kind of go and feel like, wow, I'm on my own here. I'm gonna slow down and enjoy this beautiful spot. I'm gonna video the sunset. I'm gonna take pictures with my friends and loved ones, or whoever's with me, maybe on your own, and just kind of feeling like super small in the world. I think there's a lot to learn from. You know, his main video, his Vermont video, which is very close to where I am, where we live, relatively close. Just sort of like this is a road, a private road that no one would really know about, and look at it, and you kind of get like this preview of like, wow, I would love to take a drive down that road and do some drone work on my own. That's a great spot to be. That kind of stuff versus the where should I go in Maine Google search, and it's where everyone else is going. So there's a lot to learn, I think, both ways, and they're definitely symbiotic in relationship in terms of, oh, if you overland, you're going to have some good photography opportunities, and if you photograph and video and you overland, you can definitely capture some stories.
Yeah. The other thing been thinking throughout this conversation is, if you're someone who's hit a wall, or photography feels stale, or you feel uninspired, what a motivational conversation to maybe take a left turn and start taking photo and video of the other aspects of your life that you love.
Yeah.
I'll use my example. Like, I love running. I like gardening in the summer. You know, if there's other things you're super passionate about and you feel like you've hit a creative block, maybe it's cool to just go capture some visual content of those things, because your heart's probably more in it at the time.
That's a good point. Ken, I got to ask, are your friends into this too? Video photography? Because if I'm them and I'm not, and I just want to overland, and you're stopping every 20 feet to jump out of the car and get this shot, I might leave you in the woods.
Yeah. There's most of my friends are not. My one buddy I mentioned earlier, who was the first to have like a rooftop tent. I keep saying rooftop tent. You don't need a rooftop tent to overland. If you've got a ground tent, you're good. It just tends to be like one of those products that's immediately associated with the trend. But he was the first to get the tent on top of his vehicle, and his name's Rob. He's been in quite a few of my videos, and he's into it. He's not particularly like a photographer, videographer kind of thing. He doesn't post content related to it on YouTube or anything like that, but he's understanding enough to know, like, hey, this is what you love, man. If we have to stop 7 times, stop 7 times, you know?
Cool.
And he has his own fun at the same time. If I'm off in the distance getting a shot or something like that, he'll prank my vehicle and like throw something that doesn't belong in the driver's seat or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, he has his fun with it. I've got another good friend, Jeremy, who I met through Overlanding, or I met through the social media thing here in Connecticut. And he and I work really well together because we do share that mindset. We've got radios in our trucks, and, you know, we'll pass a waterfall, for example, and it's only a matter of time before one of us hops on the radio and is like, we need to turn around. We need to get that shot.
That's cool.
You know, so if you know, it helps having others who have that like at least like-minded, you know, interest, or people who understand. So you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah. So people out there that want to do, let's say, start off with Overland Light, they just want to kind of ease into it. What are 3 pieces of equipment or things that you would say, like, go get these things? Maybe it's 5 things. I don't know.
We could limit to 3. I could totally do 3.
Okay, let's do 3.
I could do 1.
3 where it's like, get these things and you're gonna be okay for a solid 1 night over situation. Maybe 2 night.
I'd say, do you have a vehicle?
Yeah.
If you have a vehicle, that's check.
That doesn't count. We have a vehicle. So
all right. So
3 other things.
I mean, so then, okay, there's the list. Because a lot of people think it has to be, like you said, it's got to be a list of things. I need this, and this before I can.
Yeah. So that's
explore.
it.
Like, do you though? Like, you think about it. What do you really need to just go enjoy? I don't know, the woods.
Water and food and clothes.
Yeah, I mean, so besides like the essentials, if you want to get like the bare bones of the experience, you take your vehicle, get yourself a cheap little, you know, maybe cheap little like Walmart ground tent if you don't already have one, if you can't borrow one from a friend. and maybe a little Coleman stove or something like that, just to get the experience of cooking out on your tailgate, and then after that, it's really about just exploring. It does not, I mean, that's the thing, is like when we're talking about equipment for telling a story or videography or whatever, like you truly don't need a whole lot. That's the same thing with overlanding. You don't need a whole lot, but social media would tell you otherwise. You got to get a tent on top of your truck. Your truck has to have at least 40-inch tires. You've got to be able to go cross country for 6 weeks. And if you don't hit every national park in a year, then you didn't make it.
You failed.
You know what I mean? It's like
you underlanded.
Yeah, right. It's like you
overfailed.
You under oceaned.
I laughed. Slap.
Yes. Seth's tired. He's laughing at my jokes.
Wide awake, Buster.
But I mean, like that's the idea that a lot of people fall into, and it's unfortunate because it does create that mindset of, I'll take the trip when, as opposed to, let's just go for it. Let's see what happens.
Right. I think the biggest thing social media does in all genres, and we're not going to go too far down the social media rabbit hole because we do it all the time, is it increases that gap between, it increases the perceived accessibility gap.
Yeah.
The top creators in all fields.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's the bar, or that's peak, what the peak content creator is doing. Pfft, why bother?
Exactly. I'm not going to get there.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a question for you guys. As far as this is concerned.
Let's get ready.
What do you like? At what level do you consider yourself? I am now a photographer.
Your first picture you ever took?
Or we could say, I'm now a videographer.
Right. For me, I think I've used this example before. I bought a 150 to 600 millimeter lens. Later that day or week, I went outside and I took a picture of a chipmunk. And I changed my Instagram bio to wildlife photographer. People can laugh at that. That's my mentality.
Aaron?
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Can I add to mine too, though? Because I have two different sections.
Mm-hmm.
To be, from when I consider myself like a professional, you even feel like weird saying that. I feel like a professional is someone who can confidently deliver a high quality product that is tailored and gets paid to do so. Whether that's photographs for a magazine assignment, whether it's for a local business. Like what is a professional accountant? What is a professional drywaller?
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
As soon as you get paid, it kind of, maybe you're able to.
Did a good job. You have some clients, you got paid. Hey, you're a pro.
Right. Were you apprehensive about that initial, like, I'm changing my bio to photographer?
Probably, but I think we talk about, limiting beliefs and a whole bunch of other concepts so much on this show that old me may have been.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, it's like, I feel like what would be the barrier to not putting that in your Instagram bio? Like, if you think about this out loud, I'm not going to put it because people will think I'm a fraud or people will not agree with me.
But
that's going to be in silent, right? That may be the case, but you're not going to hear about it. And second, that stems from stop caring about what other people think. I know that's a big, broad category and piece of advice, but people are so focused and fixated on their own stuff. Even if they felt that way for 2 seconds, it has no bearing or effect on your life. People really, I hate to break it to you, like, people aren't paying attention to you too much as you think. Right. Everyone's trying to do their own thing and make it and improve and be successful and get attention and do all these things. Like, you're not a priority to them. I think that helps me with that. And so,
just as much as you're in your own mind, everybody else is the exact same thing.
Right. Everybody's in the exact same thing. Everybody's focused on, and that's just human nature. It's natural to try and improve your circumstances, whether they're horrible or great. And people are naturally focused on how do I do that and in their own heads.
Yeah. So the parallel, the reason why I ask is, you've got someone maybe listening to the podcast who's apprehensive about becoming the photographer,
Right.
quote unquote, or videographer, or, relating to overlanding, apprehensive about exploring and documenting it and putting it out on there on the internet because of the label won't be approved by the masses,
Yeah.
when in reality, all you're doing is you're just not doing the thing you want to do.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you going to do? Are you going to wait for somebody to come by and say, hey, you're a wildlife photographer. Go throw it in your bio, buddy.
Right. Yeah.
Like, what are you waiting for?
How are you not putting wildlife photographer in your bio?
Right.
Exactly.
I just screamed at you to do it. Like, so in your example, Ken, I don't like you're a director. You're an overlander. You're a photographer. You're a content creator. You're doing the thing.
Yeah.
No one's going to come to you and be like, you know what? It's time, man.
Yeah.
It's time to call yourself that.
It's down to you. I mean, you get to label when you're in a creative space, that you guys are in or that I'm in, you get to come up with your own label for that.
Yeah. And if you're lying to yourself.
Sure.
Right. And I think if you're going to pursue it further. I think that's a key point. You say, if I write a song tonight, I'm a songwriter. If I start promoting that I'm a songwriter and I have one song and that's the end of it, like, that's just, I don't know. It's fine, but it's not going to go anywhere and it's misleading a little bit.
So make more.
Right. If you want to,
exactly.
if I know that's my first song of 20 that I'm going to do, like that's my goal, then I'm a songwriter.
Which speaks to the fact that if I see somebody put something like that in their bio, it means, okay, they're serious about this. They're passionate about this. There's enthusiasm there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think
having that mindset helps as the extra person, as the watcher, the viewer, the bystander, And I think we have a little bit of a judgmental mentality, especially when it comes to those willing to pursue creative spaces. I think others love to make them feel like they shouldn't be. And that creates a little, we could be more understanding,
Yeah.
You could be someone listening right now saying, I disagree with everything that these guys are saying,
To get deeper with that, Ken, I think there's a lot of people that wish they did chase the dream or are waiting for the perfect opportunity and beating themselves up about it subconsciously. And we like to keep everyone within the community. And I think the creative endeavors that's a break free from the societal norms of like, have your 9 to 5, make sure everything's in order, follow societal laws. Like that's like I'm going to make my own money over here. I don't have to report to anyone. So
who do you think you are?
Yeah, I think there's a little of like, it's a mix of jealousy, envy, and misery loves company. Like,
have y'all heard of crab bucket syndrome?
Sure.
Yes, that's the thing.
What is crab
Tell
bucket?
us.
Crab bucket syndrome. If you put a bunch of crabs into a bucket, okay, obviously the ones in the top will try and escape out the top over the lid, right, to get away from the rest of the crowded crabs. The crabs below it will pull them back in, saying essentially, I'm stuck here, so should you be. So should you.
Interesting. I love that.
Yeah.
Crab bucket.
Yeah. Also known as crab mentality is a mindset where people try to stop others from succeeding even if it doesn't directly affect them. It is often described using the metaphor of crabs in a bucket where crabs will pull each other down instead of helping each other out. Fascinating.
You can Google it.
Freaking crabs.
So if you are someone in the space, why not help others who are apprehensive about joining,
That's just it. Imagine if all the crabs helped each other out of the bucket.
For sure. If you are a photographer and you've got that label, you bestowed that upon yourself and you've been doing it for quite some time and you notice someone flip their Instagram bio to photographer when maybe it's just a picture of a squirrel. Was it a squirrel or a chipmunk?
It was a chipmunk, Ken.
Chipmunk.
Okay, chipmunk. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Why not boost them? Send them a message. Looking forward to seeing your journey. Looking forward to seeing you grow.
Oh, as in me do that?
No, not you.
No,
Literally,
people
just
saying it.
the
Oh,
idea.
I see.
It's
So you're telling me to go recruit people like my hyperbole.
No, Ken,
People
I'm with you.
sending them voice DMs.
I've said it before. Our buddy Brett was a big person in that in my journey. Just someone reaching out that had a big following when I was a nobody, and just really positive about. I love seeing you trying new things. I love seeing this work. You're gonna have 1 million followers by 2 years from now. I guarantee it. Blowing smoke, but at the same time, it was like, oh, dude, someone that I don't really know likes my stuff and is encouraging.
Yeah. You do it. You do it to me.
Yeah.
Or you seek me out in the hallway and you're like, hey, saw that Vermont video. You're killing it. That looks really good. It's awesome. And you said that despite knowing, like, just because of my personality, that I'm probably going to be more successful than you at some point. So I appreciate that.
Good delivery.
There it is.
We're waiting for it.
There it is.
I do have a serious question though. So when Aaron says a compliment to you, and I know you got good one-liners as you've just demonstrated, but seriously, how is that processed once it's received? Is he lying? Oh, maybe I'm on to something. What's going through your head?
Well, I mean, you get it from a random. If you get, let's say you get an Instagram message, that's you can question that. When I get it from Aaron, I know Aaron.
Right.
I could take him at his word. I understand he's, he's a genuine guy. And so when he does something like that, and I take it wholeheartedly. I mean, I go to him for advice all the time, so if he comes back and he says, it's like a good friend giving you a compliment. You don't question that, if you get a message. And I think also, you guys can weigh in on this, but I'd say that if you get a random message on social media from someone who also gives you a compliment, that can carry just as much weight, because they did go out of their. Now anyone can go out of their way to tell you suck. You know what I mean? It happens all day, every day. But if someone goes out of their way to give you a compliment, I feel like that is almost as good as getting a compliment from a good friend, because they took the effort to do that.
Yeah, I hear you. It's just, this is kind of related, sort of unrelated. I'm laughing because it made me think of a story about a roommate of mine back in college. He had this thing where products he really loved, you know how on the box, so you get a box of pierogies, it's like 1-800 whatever for your customer feedback, and you're like, who calls those? Right? And anybody who's calling those is out of their mind complaining, right?
Yeah.
So my buddy, when there was a product, or it was usually food or drink that he really liked, he would phone the number. And I can't tell you the amount of times people would be like, hey, we don't usually get these calls, because he was saying how much he loved it.
Awesome.
That's great.
I remember a company, I think it was Brisk Iced Tea. Do you guys have that?
Yeah. Yep.
I think it was that. And they're like, what's your address? We want to send you a case.
Yeah.
We just don't get these. People are usually complaining that, I don't know, it was too sugary, or I don't know. It made me think of that story. I don't know why, but
that can work. That can work in like the brand deal development stuff, I'll usually refer to it as like playing the long game. If I get a new set of tires and they're really performing well on trails of Vermont or whatever, reach out to the tire company and be like, hey, or I'll send them the post that I made on Instagram. You make it, you tag them, but some companies are so big, they're like, oh, it's the 500th post today that we were tagged in. So I'll send it and I'll be like, hey, just wanted to let you know, these are awesome. These are awesome.
Yeah.
No problems, and then
where can I leave a review?
Yeah, exactly. Do you do Google? Do you do this? Do you do, whatever? And then 3 months later, do the same thing. And then 3 months later, maybe you do the same thing. And then maybe nothing might ever come of it. They might just be like, oh, hey, it's Varsity again, saying he loves our stuff. That's awesome. Or one day you get an email.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, heard you love the tires. Love to send you some.
I think
But
that's important.
it's genuine, and you're giving yourself an opportunity to talk to someone, a real human, someone that starts a conversation. Anything can come from taking the moment to reach out and tell someone you care about them.
Yeah. It's got to be genuine though.
Yeah, it's got to be genuine.
You got to mean it. You know what I mean? You have to actually be like, if nothing comes from this other than the conversation, I'm glad we had the conversation.
Yeah.
That's just it. I was going to say how do you, people wondering, okay, how do I be genuine if I also want something? That's fine, but expect nothing of it. Expect nothing in return going in, and I think you won't be disappointed.
You never say "I love you" to hear "I love you too."
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, you say it because you love the person.
Is that why you never say "I love you" to me, Aaron?
Yes.
Okay.
That is exactly why. I know you're not going to say it back.
You know, the Overland space has that mentality with a lot of people. You know, it is a bandwagon. It did explode after COVID. People getting out and doing things in the wild, exploring nature, buying tents, doing the thing, and brands noticed that. So brands started pushing out their products. People noticed that. And there's a lot of people who, they just start taking pictures of their truck, and they start, taking pictures of mountains and things, and they'll immediately start reaching out to companies and just be like, give me something, And when that happens, it makes it difficult too for people who are genuine to not look like they're just in it for, the new set of tires.
So then here's my question, because I think there's almost a paradox in it. It makes it more difficult, but I would argue it pokes a pocket for you to stand out.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, like if everyone's kind of being transparent about they just want stuff, there's a template or formula that I feel like marketing directors, like if you get 100 messages like that, I can tell what this person is asking. So I'm saying if there's a ton of people doing it, it leaves a small space for you to be wildly different.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'd see that.
I think in our world, Ken, it's people write out and go, hey, do you want photos or video? And like, that's the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
I can do photos or video, or do you want to work together? And they get a million of those. It's the person that writes out and it's like, hey, I bought your product. This is this concept I had with my dog and dog sledding, and it's winter here, and I think this works perfectly. Here's an example of my work. Here's the rest of my work. That they're like,
are you interested in hearing more? Say yes.
Yeah, you have a chance. You have a chance there to get some attention, versus they're not going to go through 400. Do you want to work together? So I take pictures, or I take photo, or I take video, and do the research themselves. They need it to be, I feel like, handed to them on a platter of like, here's all the things you need to know in a quick synopsis.
Yeah. As easy as humanly possible.
Yeah, for them.
Right. But you also, it's kind of weird too. You also have to be able to convey how genuine you are as easy as possible, Right. I think some of that, especially for overlanding, is you just have to do it, because that aspect of, I don't have the gear yet, I'm not going to take the trip until, like, that can also apply to people who want to be content creators in this space. I'm not going to start the YouTube channel until I can list all the brands I'm working with at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
You've got to, you've got to prove that you're doing it. It's
I can also,
like magazines won't use photos. Magazines won't use your like publications won't use your article if you've never made a trip across country, for example, but you're trying to pitch the trip across the country. They're like, well, have you done it before? No. All right. Well,
yeah, you don't have proof of concept. That's what you're saying.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Have a proof of concept on your own time is what we suggest always.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be done with low stakes, where don't have somebody paying you thousands of dollars. Make mistakes on your own time. Make mistakes on your own time. What would you say was was the hardest part about getting started as a content creator in your niche?
The bandwagon, essentially, the popularity of it at the time. I started in 2021. It was late summer of 2021. I posted my first YouTube video. And at that time it was, the post-COVID kind of effect was fully in swing with people going outside and putting all of their outdoor adventures on social media. And that was probably the hardest part, was doing something to stand out and being worried that I couldn't do anything to stand out. I'd just be, Overland influencer number 72 on YouTube. You know what I mean? I did find it easy to like, once I had just hit the play button, I did find it easy to do it. I think it was just a matter of getting over that hurdle of like, hey, if it flops, it flops. You have to enjoy doing it for the sake of doing it. I enjoy being creative. So it's a creative outlet at the end of the day. When I got into it, it was really like, hey, maybe people will enjoy this, but I'm gonna enjoy doing it as well. So I didn't have any aspirations of, 4 years ago, I didn't have any aspirations of like, I'm going to quit my job. This is going to be it. I'm going to be an Overland content creator. Here we go. It was really more like, I like making videos, editing things. I know that when I was a kid, I used to play around with this software similar to it. So maybe I'll take that and I'll combine it with this new thing that I fell in love with. And if it never turns into anything, it never turns into anything. At the end of the day, what I'm really doing is documenting my travels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is awesome, because I'll admit I have a terrible memory. So sometimes I'll go back and watch a video and go, oh yeah, that did happen. So it's kind of like a virtual portfolio, really.
Yeah, it is.
Have you guys heard of Google Trends? You ever use this?
Is that like a function to see what's popping right now?
Yeah, like you can put, like, while you were speaking, I put in overlanding as a topic, and I can track the interest over time on a scale from 1 to 100.
Oh, interesting.
0 being no interest in the digital world and the internet, people searching it.
Yeah.
100 being max.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys want to hear some interesting data?
Yeah.
So
I think I could take a guess.
Okay. 0 is no interest, and 100 is max interest. And I'm looking at from 2015 until today, which is January 15th.
So I'd say probably early on, around that 2015, it hovered around 0.
4.
Okay.
Good guess.
Right? And it grew steadily, not anything crazy, but around COVID, it spiked real hard.
Spiked huge from March 2020.
And then when it dropped...
Hold on. Spiked from March 2020 to July 20th.
And then it dropped, but I think it only dropped to where it was originally tracking.
Being what?
Got to pick a number, right? Maybe it'll say 65.
60 it dropped to.
Okay.
Wow. Ken's good.
So it started...
I'm not cheating.
He has it in front of him. It was at 4 and...
My camera on the computer is being used. Hands are free right now.
He has a giant poster of this bar graph.
He does. So interest over time, it was a 4 out of 100 in 2015. Spiked to a 90 in July of 2020. Yep. That uptick started in March of 2020, which was perfect pandemic time.
Mm-hmm.
Then it cratered down to 60 in November of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Had a resurgence up to, or you're going to guess, the following year in July 2021, it had an uptick to what?
I'll go 80.
100.
Ooh. Wow. And what year was that?
July 2021.
2021.
So a lot of people saw about it. And
I was in the middle of...
It was probably, this is what I'm guessing. It was pandemic, okay? We're going to go to overlanding. And then people were like, this isn't for me. And then people went back to work. And then they're like, work sucks. It was so much better when I was overlanding.
Yeah.
Okay, and now where do you think it's at today?
Today, let's go with 75.
34.
No kidding.
A huge crater in the last 2 years in terms of interest online. Google Trends. Well, I was searching this because I was going to ask you if you noticed people flop out of the industry.
Yeah, I mean, so the metrics that I was just naming off were coming from, I think, I was watching a video a couple weeks ago about the attendance to expos, Overland
Okay.
Expo. There's 4 really big ones across the country, and they were listing about how the attendance it's skyrocketed at that same time that you said it was popular on Google. I did not expect you to say it's dropped as low as it has in the last 2 years. I think I don't know. Now that I think about it, maybe that has happened. It's happened as far as Overland content creators come and go.
Mhm.
I think I saw a lot of people getting into the space when I said that I was getting into the space, end of summer 21. And there's definitely been accounts that have just not posted in the past couple months or the past year, or just dropped off the face of the planet.
Yep.
Things don't pan out the way they hope, or
interest change.
Interest
and
change.
interest is different than doing. I mean, I was looking up rooftop tents for a long time around that time.
Oh yeah, that's right. You were.
I was really researching it. I was kind of figuring out if I was gonna utilize it for the cost and
I think the problem came from also the fact that, when something becomes popular and there is a bandwagon, product companies notice that and prices, adjust accordingly.
True.
And so I think a lot of people got into it with that mindset that we've been talking about this whole time. They got into it with the mindset of, I need to have the, $65,000 truck. I need to have the $4,000 tent. I need to have, and so they purchase all these things, spend all this money, and then they realize they went on 2 camping trips all year. So maybe it's not really worth it to me. And then they hit Facebook Marketplace, and then everything's gone, and then they haven't posted anything on social media in a year, so
yeah.
I think that played a huge role, was also the feeling that they had to do it a certain way, right? Someone buys their camera because they feel like they need this camera to be a photographer. And then they realize that they really only got out a couple times that year to take wildlife photography. Okay, now I'm selling the camera, That all plays back to the idea of just get out and use what you got and you see if it's for you in the first place.
Yeah. I searched photography too as a
comparison.
Google?
Yeah, Google Trends photography as a search term. 100 out of 100 in terms of interest. August of 2020.
Yeah.
Currently a 65.
It's interesting. What was it? 2015.
Hang on. 2015.
Or whatever the chart started. I thought you said that.
Well, so I extended it from 2004. It's weird. If you do 2004 to present worldwide, in 2004, the term photography was a 100 out of 100 on level of interest. And then it's saying that January of 2025 is a 24. That's when you zoom out. But when you zoom into like a 5-year window, the number is higher. So it's strange. I think it it changes the averages somehow.
Maybe, I don't know.
Going from 100 in 2004 to a 24 in January of 2025. Can't be right, but maybe. I don't know. Play around with it at home.
Yeah, I don't know.
Analytics are weird like that. Internet analytics.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I still have trouble interpreting my YouTube analytics every once in a while. So,
You and me both.
Well,
Jinx. I'll do the well. Well, Ken, thank you for being on the show. I will see you tomorrow. I think. Well, we
I don't know if you will.
A little cold. No, I appreciate it. It's definitely a palate cleanser and a different look at this whole thing that Seth and I usually talk about, photography and videography, and connecting it to mindset. We got definitely a bunch of mindset stuff. And I thought it's interesting I think there's a refreshing take on the video and photography genres with someone that it's like, well, that's secondary to what I'm doing, but still very successful at it. So still figuring it out, still working through it, still going through the bumps and bruises of Premiere Pro and editing not working the way you want it to, or whatever it may be, like figuring it out and pushing through it and developing a story and a creative and displaying it to the world, and not only to the world, but for yourself. Like you said, it's a great document, a virtual document of your travels, where you've been, the experiences that you'll have forever. And if the audience likes it, great, but you do. So I think that is what I took away from it. And thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
It was nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Formally, informally meet you.
Right. Virtually.
Yeah.
Virtually.
Till next time, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.